measuring individual run creation. So previously, we established run values for each event in baseball. So how do we use these values to measure run creation? Turns out it's pretty straightforward. Basically, we're just going to multiply these run values times the number of events for each of these players. But first, we have to make one adjustment. We're going to scale these numbers so an out is worth 0. This doesn't change the value of any of these relative to each other. It just kind of makes the math easier and easier for us to interpret, because an out in batting average and on-base percentage is worth 0. So we're just kind of putting everything on the same scale. So over the last 3 years, Aaron Judge created 680 runs compared to what was expected, and Juan Soto created 683. And remember, a player who created an out in every at-bat is going to have a value of 0. Now, this is a perfectly fine way to compare the amount of runs created by each player. However, this is a counting stat, and you can see from the numbers over here, some players may have gotten into the plate more than others. For the same reasons we use batting average and on-base percentage, we're going to turn this into a rate stat. This is also pretty straightforward. First thing we're going to do is we're going to scale these run values so our final number is similar to on-base percentage. We do this simply because it's more interpretable. We can look at a player's wOBA and use that same intuition that we're able to use for identifying good on-base percentage. It's really just because it's simpler for our brains. The number varies from year to year based on the league environment, and you can find every one of those at the link below on Fangraphs. But for the last 3 years, the wOBA scale number was 1.2. So now, we can just put it all together. You'll see this equation on Fangraphs and many other places with the wOBA number kind of already distributed to the values, but I think it's a little bit easier to understand by keeping it separate. So you can see the direct relationship between the run values we created earlier and the final output. Next, we just divide by plate appearances, and that gives us our final wOBA equation. So what does wOBA tell us? wOBA is a descriptive rate stat that attempts to measure individual offensive value. By crediting each event with the individual run value, we are properly weighting offensive outcomes. It's also an improvement over slugging percentage, which improperly scales outcomes versus each other. Now that we're using the proper run values, our rate stat appropriately measures the offensive value of a player. Here are the leaders for the last 3 years. There's a lot of names you're familiar with, and probably some that you're surprised by, and didn't realize just how good they are at producing runs. It also illustrates just how damn good Aaron Judge is. Additionally, because we did that scaling thing earlier, we can interpret this in the same way as we did on base percentage. 400 is excellent, 320 is average, 300 below is pretty bad. But wOBA is not perfect. It's a huge improvement over other statistics we have discussed, but there's still some of this part of the story it doesn't quite tell us. wOBA is an awesome descriptive tool for telling us how good an individual player is. But if we want to ask the question, how much better is this player than others? We need a different number, and we do this by comparing each player to the league average. This allows us to say something like Shohei Ohtani created 50 more runs than the average player. A number like this is ideal for getting us to our ultimate question of evaluating one player against another.